Can one mind-altering substance like psychedelics override dependence on another substance like alcohol? How does that work? Hi, if you're new here, my name is Dan Ronkin. I'm a licensed therapist and a person in long-term recovery from addiction. And on this channel, I explore psychedelic therapy and addiction recovery. In this video, I'll cover 3 things. First, a brief overview of psychedelics used to treat alcohol addiction. Second, I'll highlight psilocybin, the active ingredient in so-called magic mushrooms, as current research is showing encouraging results. And lastly, the potential risks and rewards of working with these medicines. And make sure to watch until the end of this video to learn about where we are today, an option that's currently available, and I'll share some personal experience and thoughts as well. And while you're watching, please share your thoughts on the healing potential of psychedelic medicines by letting us know in the comments below. Psychedelics were popular in the 1950s and 60s, and I'm not just referring to the hippie culture. In fact, there were 6 international conferences and over 1,000 published papers on psychedelic therapy. And specifically, LSD was administered to roughly 40,000 patients. Then the war on drugs happened, which essentially halted the research. LSD is still illegal according to the federal government, as well as psilocybin, which I'll be discussing later. So the only way to legally work with either of these substances in the United States at the moment is through participation in a research study. I'm hopeful that the results of these studies will change laws and continue to reduce the stigma associated with psychedelic medicines. Back to the 50s. In 1956, the founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, Bill Wilson, had several LSD therapy sessions. He experienced significant benefit from these sessions and felt that LSD could support the types of spiritual experience alcoholics needed to get sober. The people on the AA board did not agree. They felt it could hurt the branding of the organization. AA is based more on traditional Christian concepts, even though each member is encouraged to seek a God of their own understanding. That is, I guess, unless they come to understand God through a psychedelic medicine experience. Choose anything but that. Although I mentioned earlier there were over 1,000 published papers on psychedelic therapy from the 1950s and 60s, upon close inspection, there were problems with many of the studies. There was very low dosages, leaving participants alone in a room before the peak therapeutic effects of the medicine kicked in. Both therapists and patients were encouraged to keep talking during the experience, which we now know a lot of the benefit can happen when people are focusing inward, allowing for the experience to unfold, instead of a continued dialogue back and forth with a therapist, which could be distracting. In 2012, Norwegian researchers Krebs and Johansen reviewed the most significant and randomized controlled studies on LSD for alcoholism by combing through all of the published research on this topic from 1943 through 2010. In their final analysis, they identified 6 eligible trials involving 534 adults in which they concluded a single dose of LSD had a significant beneficial effect on alcohol misuse. This signals that more research should be done. They went on to say, given the evidence for a beneficial effect of LSD on alcoholism, it is puzzling why this treatment approach has been largely overlooked. Well, there is a lot of social stigma around LSD due to its negative associations to the 1960s drug culture and then ultimately becoming illegal in 1970. Because of this unique social stigma and some other factors, specifically around LSD, researchers are now turning their attention to psilocybin. Psilocybin is the active ingredient found in magic mushrooms, and current research is focused on psilocybin instead of LSD for a number of reasons. Quite frankly, it's less scary for people, produces less anxiety, and the effects of psilocybin don't last as long, 6 hours compared to 12 hours for LSD. Psilocybin affects the brain by increasing the number of connections in the brain and also allows for different brain networks to communicate with one another. In other words, parts of the brain that don't normally talk to each other are now engaged in deep, stimulating conversations with one another with psilocybin. The experiences people have on psilocybin is unique to them, yet there are some reported commonalities. People may experience visual illusions, increased joy or peacefulness, sometimes fear and anxiety. They experience a greater sense of meaning or mystical type experiences. And what may be a most important topic for this video is that psychedelics do not lead to addiction or dependence. The following is a testimony from one of the participants named Adam in a 2015 pilot study involving psilocybin for alcohol dependence. There was a part of me where I felt gone. It wasn't like last time where I always remembered I was Adam. There was a part of me there where I was gone. I would come back, remember telling myself, you took this to try and help. And it is helping. There's the old Adam, then the new Adam without alcohol. As you may have noticed in his description, he wasn't describing visual illusions or strange psychedelic colors. He spoke of experiencing something beyond himself than his normal day-to-day waking consciousness. He was able to really envision his future self, Adam, without alcohol. As a therapist, I know firsthand how difficult it can be for someone who is terrified or even grasp what life could look like once their main coping mechanism goes away. In this case, alcohol. Based on the encouraging results from this pilot study, there is a phase 2 double-blind study currently underway, led by the same NYU researcher, Michael Bogenschutz. If you're interested in hearing the results of this study, click subscribe to this channel, as I'll surely be doing a follow-up video once they're published. There can be a lot of mystery and guesses on why these experiences can help people. We'll now turn to another NYU researcher for some answers. For this section, we'll take the lead from Elizabeth Nielsen from NYU, who published a paper on some of the initial findings from the current psilocybin study that I mentioned earlier. I'll paraphrase the 3 potential reasons, in simplified language, on why she states that psilocybin may work for this population. First, mystical/spiritual experience. The initial research points to the mystical experience in these psychedelic journeys helps motivate people to change. 2, psychological factors. Increased motivation to change because life's aspirations now seem possible. There's better insight, acceptance, compassion. Third, brain science. There are changes in the way brain cells communicate with one another, and there's also evidence that pathways in which they travel can be shaken up and rewired. This is important to note because old habits die hard, and with psychedelic medicine, this may help change things up. I'm a therapist, not a medical doctor, so don't take this as medical advice. Here are some documented risks. 1, panic or fear reactions, and potentially engage in dangerous behavior. This is why it's so important to do this under safe conditions with trained professionals. Second, studies typically exclude people with a family history of conditions like psychosis and schizophrenia. So for people who are already vulnerable to these conditions, exposure to psilocybin could be risky with long-term effects. 3, psilocybin could be dangerous when taken with other medications such as antidepressants. Oh, and if you are a medical professional, please comment below and let me know if I missed anything. I've personally done mushrooms dozens of times in a recreational manner. That said, it's been about 20 years. I look forward to experiencing them again in a controlled environment with trained professionals. As I mentioned in the beginning of this video, there's an option available for people right now. It's called ketamine. It's legal and has psychedelic properties. It helps with depression and is being researched for alcohol addiction. If you're interested in learning more, check out this video right here.